The next stop on our Champagne journey is the Château of Chantilly. In its grand gallery is an exquisite painting that was commissioned in 1735 by Louis XV for his new private dining room at Versailles. This painting by Jean-François de Troyes is significant because it's the first painting to depict sparkling champagne. It is titled The Oyster Lunch. These 12 gentlemen have just returned from a hunt and are enjoying fabulous fresh oysters from the English coast with champagne. De Troyes chose to focus the king's painting on champagne because it symbolized the good life, happiness, fun, and elegance. And it certainly still does. Notice at each place setting, there is a bowl with a glass turned upside down in it. In that time, champagne was drunk in one gulp due to the heavy sediment which was left over from fermentation. They had yet to figure out how to get rid of the sediment in the bottle without the bubbles escaping. After gulping it quickly, the glasses were turned upside down to let the sediment drain out, and a fresh glass of champagne was then served. This beautiful piece of furniture was made especially for ice and chilling champagne. There of course were no freezers and refrigerators back then, so ice was harvested during winter from ponds and lakes and stored deep underground until needed in the warmer months. Look at the handsome gentleman who has just cut the string off the cork with his knife and is now watching it shoot from the bottle toward the ceiling. Some things never change. Some people still enjoy shooting the cork out today. Oysters, by the way, are a wonderful partner with champagne because thousands of years ago, the Champagne region was covered by the ocean, which left huge deposits of shells behind. This made most of Champagne soil a chalky limestone, which is great for growing grapes in because it absorbs the heat of the day and radiates it back to the vines during the cool nights. As oysters taste like the ocean, and the chalky soil imparts mineral flavor to the grapes, champagne and oysters are a perfect pairing. Try it, and be sure to toast de Troyes' Oyster Lunch. Another man in the 17th century also had an immense influence on Champagne. He lived from 1638 to 1715. He was born in the same year and died in the same year as Louis XIV, but they never met. He developed the golden rules of winemaking that are still in use today. They were new and radical at the time. He was not royalty, he was the exact opposite. He wore very simple clothes and sandals, shaved his head, and devoted his life to serving God at the Abbey of Hautvillers, which is located in Champagne. This pious man paved the way for Champagne to become one of the most well-known wines in the world today. He worked diligently to rebuild the vineyards of the Abbey after they had been destroyed by many wars and invaders and was all but abandoned. Due to his work, Champagne the wine has become synonymous with the region itself. He was a monk named Dom Pérignon. Véronique Foureur, a historian with Moët Chandon Champagne, and Vincent Chaperon, the oenologist for Dom Pérignon's namesake Champagne, will share more about this devout Catholic man who created wines of perfection. Dom Pérignon is known as the father of Champagne.
Yes, absolutely. And the story dates back to Dom Pérignon's arrival to this Benedictine Abbey of Hautvillers. Dom Pérignon, a young monk, he was not even 30 years old, was appointed bursar to this abbey in 1668. So it means that this young Dom, this young Benedictine father, was in charge in running the goods of the abbey, among which looking after the vineyards and producing wine. And it was for him a way of praising God, of praising the Lord. Again, he was Benedictine monk. He wanted to make the best wine in the world. Although Louis XIV, the Sun King of France, and Dom Pierre Pérignon never met, the king knew about le vin du Père Pérignon, so Father Pérignon's wine. So this is to tell you the levels of quality that Dom Pérignon had reached in the production of his wines, of the abbey's wines.
Very high, the highest level.
Yes, absolutely. And he was looking for the highest level. Again, the best wine in the world.
Véronique, what does the title Dom mean?
Dom is a title given still today, nowadays, to the Benedictine fathers. Dom, 3 letters, Deo, Optimo, Maximo, God, the best and the greatest in everything. Dom, Dominus, the Lord. So a Benedictine father is called Dom, then keeps his name and surname. So Dom Pierre Pérignon.
When was the Abbey of Hautvillers first constructed?
The foundation of this Benedictine Abbey of Hautvillers dates back to 650. The monks, the Benedictine monks again, lived here for more than 11 centuries. They had to go away as the French Revolution forbade the practice of any religion and decided to divide the goods. We are here in this part of the abbey, also this part which remains of the original cloister. And here behind you see the church, which used to be the abbey church. Dom Pérignon is buried in the choir of this church, and it is still used nowadays. It is the village's Hautvillers parish church.
Where on this plan are the cellars located?
The cellars were located all around the place. So here on this plan, under the abbey, here as well, and as well, it's difficult to figure out, but near the vineyards, which are still nowadays here.
The monks were interested in vineyards primarily to make wine for the Eucharist and to raise funds to help the sick and the poor, as well as for travelers who relied on monasteries for food and shelter. This was predating hotels and taverns. For over 1,000 years, Hautvillers was one of the most renowned of all French monasteries. It was burned and sacked by warring invaders at least 4 times between the 9th and 16th centuries. The monks fled the abbey in 1790, never to return when the French revolutionaries seized all church properties and sold them off. Here you see those letters, Dom, D-O-M. It says, "Here lies Dom Pierre Pérignon, bursar to this abbey for 47 years. A man who administered the daily business, summa cum laude, in the best possible way. A man full of virtue and of family love towards the poor. He died at the age of 77 in 1715. Rest in peace. Requiescat in pace." This is the main altar, which was built in Dom Perignon's times. The statue represents St. Helena. She was the mother of Constantine the Great, who was the Roman emperor in the early 4th century. Thanks to his mother, he recognized the Christian religion and decided as well to convert himself to Christianity. He was the first Roman emperor to do so and proclaimed religious tolerance of Christians throughout the empire.
What role did the Crusades play with respect to champagne?
The Crusade played an important role. It might be interesting to point out that one of the first Crusades was preached a few kilometers away from here by a Champenois and a Pope, Urban II. The Count of Champagne, of course, took part to the Crusades, and many of the other nobles together with them. It's interesting as well when we talk about vineyards and how the properties and the lands were built, because people's believing in God was so important that they gifted the abbey, left the goods to the abbey in case of an accident, in case of death.
Dom Pérignon is credited with doing so much for the advancement of champagne. How do we know it's a true story?
Researches were made, first of all, by the director of the archives of the Département Marne. So a book was written by an historian about it. And most of all, a book was written by Brother Peter, successor to Dom Pérignon, treatise of wine growing. And so that's how we know about the improvements brought to wine growing, to the quality of the wines, the way the grapes were selected, the way the grapes were pressed in a very slow way in order to avoid any coloration of the must, because this is an important point. Dom Pérignon wanted to make the clearest, whitest possible wines with black grapes, and as well the art of blending, which is so important and which was invented by Dom Pierre Pérignon, who before the harvest, during the harvest, tasted the grapes from different places, different villages. Again, those villages which brought their grapes to the monks because of the tithing.
That's right.
And so we know from that treatise what Dom Pérignon thought to be the best, and we know what he did and how he improved the quality of his wines.
And his techniques and ideas are still being used today all over the world in viticulture.
Well, if you talk about pressing the grapes in a very soft, slow way in order to avoid coloration, to get the clearest possible must, yes. When you talk about blending, yes, of course, it was completely new in those days. So again, in his days, he blended grapes. Nowadays, our winemakers blend wines. But this is the origin of blending in Champagne dates back to Dom Pierre Pérignon.
We are here with Vincent Chaperon. He is the oenologist for Dom Pérignon Champagne. Oenologist means winemaker, for those of you who aren't familiar with that term yet. Will you tell us about the golden rules that Dom Pérignon developed?
Yes. Very curious thing, is that 300 or 200 years after Dom Pérignon, we have kept a lot of rules from him. I think there is for me three main things you have to understand and to retain. To remind, the first one is about the quality of the grapes. I think that Dom Pérignon told us a lot about how to reach the best quality of the grapes in the vineyard, how to grow the vine. So we are respecting those rules today. The second thing is about the blending. Dom Pérignon, Pierre Pérignon, was the first man to have this idea to blend, to mix different grape variety from different origins, different vineyards. And today we are working at Dom Pérignon a lot on this step of the process, trying to reach our style, our signature by blending. And the third rule we took from him is about the aging, about the art of aging our champagne, our Dom Pérignon, during long years on yeast in order to reach maturity.
Up until Dom Pérignon's time in Champagne, the bottles were being sealed with wood pegs wrapped in hemp and soaked in oil, but he changed that.
Yeah, some story tells that Dom Pérignon once traveled to Spain and met there some people who were sealing their water bottle with some cork, because cork is originally from Spain and Portugal. And that's true that today we are still using a cork stopper because it's a raw material, very useful because for its mechanical properties and its property of for sealing the bottle and conserving the wine for a long time. It's very useful.
Will you tell us about the terroir of this region?
Yeah, terroir is a very interesting term. It's a French term, so I don't know if everybody understand it. It's something which is talking about our regions, soil, climate, microclimate, people who are working in the region, in the area. So it's a mix of different parameters. And that's true that in Champagne, the terroir is really good and really unique. Why? Because first of all, we are the northernmost area for vine growing in the world. So we have a very specific climate. It's very cold, a lot of rains, not a lot of sun and warm temperature. So it gives us very fruity, fresh fruits in order to make those elegant and very fresh wines. First vintage of Dom Pérignon was 1921, and we launched it in 1936. There were a few bottles who were sent in the United States of America, and the idea was to create a super premium champagne with the best grapes from the Grand Cru of Champagne and with the best quality and the best winemaking. So the idea was to try to do one of the best wine in the world.
Please describe the style of Dom Pérignon for the audience.
Yeah, with pleasure. I serve us 2 glasses of Dom Pérignon. I think it's always better to talk about the wine while tasting and drinking it. So, in Champagne, everybody is talking about style. And style is the signature of every Champagne. And Dom Pérignon has a specific style, specific signature. I think that, first of all, we are looking for texture. We are always saying that Dom Pérignon is a tactile wine. That means that on the palate, when you drink Dom Pérignon, there is a way of caressing. The wine has a way of caressing your palate in a silky way, very softly, without any aggressivity. That's really important for us. Then we are looking for purity. We want the nose of our wine, the fruit there is on the nose, to be really pure, without any defects. Purity is really important. Precision, everything must be really precise in the wine. And then intensity and complexity. And with aging, with the time of aging, Dom Pérignon is more and more intense on the nose and on the palate, and more complex, full of savor and full of flavors. Listen, we are just hearing the bell of the church of Dom Pérignon Abbey.
Oh, it's lovely.
Cheers.
Cheers. Delicious. Amazing.
Thank you.
When do you drink champagne?
Like everyone else on special occasions, but contrary to Winston Churchill, who had it at breakfast, I prefer it a little later on in the day, but in the morning I think it's lovely. And I remember when I was a young midship in the Navy, and we had always a bottle of champagne open, so when we went out of our, how do you call it, our duty at midnight, we always were allowed to have a little cup of champagne.
Oh, fun.
That's very nice. It cheers you up before going to bed.
Sure it does.
So any moment is good.
As far as these two wines are concerned, it's well, they are well, for me, I like them as an aperitif. You know, it's typically French. It means before we go and have lunch or dinner, we first have a time of rest and talking and relaxing. And during that time, we'll have some champagne. So either the yellow label, the Brut, or the rosé one. And we'll have a few canapés with them. So you can, well, try, taste yourself and see what you prefer. And so this is one way. And the other way is, of course, you know, when you're with your lovers, typically French, you know, French lovers. So it's a kind of dedication to them too.
Very good.
I have many occasions every day to drink champagne, you know, from the breakfast with oysters, why not,
Okay.
to really midnight, end of the night, even after dinner. So I think the champagne is really a drink that can be drink, you know, all the day long. I really mean it, because if you taste some champagne for breakfast with some oysters or salt food, it's very good. Before lunch, of course, as an aperitif. During lunch, because many people don't think that champagne can age very well. But if you take old vintage of champagne, like 82, 88, which are 20, 25 years old, they goes very well with white meat or special fish, and it's very good. And people really don't know that, I mean, don't try that, and so they usually drink it as an aperitif, or usually before the champagne was drink only for desserts.
Right.
And in fact, the champagne during the Russian period was had more sugar. In
very
the bottle.
sweet.
Very sweet. And today, really, champagne with the Brut concept is more drinkable all the day long, and of course after lunch and at night before as an aperitif, etc. So all day long.
When do you drink champagne?
As often as possible. I think it's important to remember that there are so many wonderful special moments in life that deserve to be celebrated, and one can find a reason every day to drink champagne.
On which occasions do you drink champagne?
Tout le temps. Tous les jours, tout le temps.
On devrait avoir drink champagne daily, because we can drink champagne for any occasion, any opportunity, and we are used to that. We drink champagne every day.
Donc nous en buvons tous les jours.
When do you drink champagne?
Very nice. I can tell you that I like drinking champagne where there is no event. For example, at the end of the week, on Friday evening, I come back to my house and I tell to my wife, okay, we drink a champagne. On Sunday night, before going back to work, we drink champagne, because we must know that we have to begin a new week. So we have no special event. For me, it's interesting to taste champagne when you want to drink champagne, but not waiting for a new event. Okay, so it's my point of view. It's very important to drink champagne when you want, only when you want. Okay,
I agree.
On which occasions do you drink champagne?
Anytime I have a pretext to do it. Of course, we have, I should say, official moments, birthdays and things like this, but, well, just saying that, well, nice weather, having good friends, and then we have a bottle. Of course, for us, champagne is also wine, which means that, yes, we can have it as an aperitif, we can have it on a whole meal. For example, at this time of the year, so it's end of spring, beginning of summer, I love Moët Chandon Rosé Imperial with a picnic or a barbecue.
Very nice.
For me, the best moment is for breakfast, because I try to keep just a small bit of champagne from the bottle we had on the day before, and so on breakfast, it's a very good way to start the day, and then you just remember what you did just before with the same bottle.
Very good.
So that's the pleasure of champagne.